guys, thanks for joining me today. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about my trip to Gettysburg. Gettysburg is a trip that I want to take my entire life, and we actually thought it was a good idea to take a little day trip down there. We actually live 3.5 hours away, but I'm going to tell you guys right now, Gettysburg is not a trip that you can do in a day. If you want to see and actually experience the entire Gettysburg experience, don't make a day trip. And we definitely didn't experience it all, and we're already making plans to go back, maybe in the spring, and spend a couple days there. First, let me tell you about a couple things we did, and then I will tell you and let you hear some stuff that I got there. Of course, I did bring my voice recorder because it's notoriously haunted, that whole entire town. Some people call Gettysburg the battle that never ends because you can hear sometimes, and some people say they can hear actual musket and cannon fire and people yelling as if there's a battle going on when you're at the battlefields. I will tell you guys right now, when we first arrived to the battlefields, I had no knowledge of that whatsoever, that there's such a phenomenon there known as phantom cannon fire, phantom musket fire, phantom battle. Now, most of you probably do know what Gettysburg is. It's a small town in Pennsylvania, and it is where one of the most significant battles of the American Civil War, if not the most significant battle of the American Civil War, was fought, and that battle took place between July 1st and July 3rd, 1863. It was a very bloody battle. Many people lost their lives there, but it was kind of known as the turning point of the Civil War. Up until the Battle of Gettysburg, it seemed like the Confederates were going to win the Civil War. They were winning the Civil War, but Gettysburg pretty much changed that for the Civil War. I'm not going to get into a lot of Civil War history here because I think that would make this a very long video. But if you want to learn more about the Battle of Gettysburg, you can look it up online. There's millions and millions and millions of websites. I'm probably exaggerating there, but thousands of websites where you can learn more about it. Now, Gettysburg is a place that I recommend everybody goes to at some point in their lifetime, especially if you live kind of close to it. I mean, if you are a Civil War buff, if you love the Civil War and everything about it, I definitely think it's worth making a longer trip to it. But if you're not so much into that, it might be a little boring for you. But for me, even just getting out of the car on the battlefield was amazing. I mean, it almost brought tears to my eyes. It was like almost nostalgic for me. So keep that in mind if you're like a history or a Civil War era lover. You would love Gettysburg. So as I said in the beginning of the video, I did bring my digital voice recorder to try to capture some EVP at Gettysburg. And I did say that my husband and I did hear some phantom cannon fire. I didn't realize at the time, but there are no firearms or cannon discharge allowed in the Gettysburg National Park. There are no reenactments allowed on the battlefield or around the battlefields. They do that out of respect for the people who had died there. So when I first got to the battlefield and I first took out my voice recorder, I was just kind of messing around with it, trying to get it set up. I was trying to get a separate folder in the storage of the voice recorder set up for the Gettysburg EVP, and as I was doing that, I just heard behind me a cannon go off, and I'm telling you, it was so loud that I thought it was in the field directly behind me. So I turned around, I'm like, it must be some sort of reenactment over there. I didn't see anything, but I didn't think twice about it. As I'm walking around, I just had the voice recorder on, I didn't say anything specific at the time. And I walked over to where my husband was doing video, because he actually took the video camera for me to get some video, and he's actually reading off everything on the monuments. There's like hundreds of monuments there, so to read everything off of every monument would take a long time, but he didn't know that at the time. So I just walked towards him, and I heard on the EVP playback a whisper. So I'll play that for you now. and I can't make out what it says. To me it sounds like it says just a whisper, something louder, and then a shorter whisper. But you can hear my husband's voice in the background. He's the one that's like, you know, talking in a consistent pattern. So by the time I walked up to him, I asked him, did you hear some kind of cannon fire? And he's like, yeah, I heard it. It was behind us. They're probably doing something over there. But when I got home, I did research into whether there was a cannon discharge that day. I didn't see anything about that, and I actually read on there that they don't discharge cannons in the national park. They don't do reenactments in the national park. I actually looked up something about phantom cannon fire, and it is a real phenomenon that people hear the battle going on while they're there, and it was so neat. And I'm convinced that that's what I heard. Maybe I'm losing it, but I'm pretty sure me and my husband both heard cannon fire that was phantom cannon fire, which would be a residual haunting, I believe. So it was pretty neat to hear that. My mother didn't hear it, my son didn't hear it either, so it was just me and my husband, and they were with us in our group. So the next EVP I got was just when I was walking around, and this was after I actually stood by myself after I let the group go ahead of me a long way. And I said, you know, if any spirits are here of the soldiers who have passed away in the battle, want to speak to me, speak into the light on my recorder, and you're welcome to follow me around the park as we walk around. I actually welcome them to do that. And it's odd. To me, it sounds like you burn. It just says you burn, but it's very faint. All the EVPs pretty much that I got at Gettysburg are very faint. So I recommend that you put on headphones and turn your volume up when you hear it. So I'll play that for you now. So the next EVP I'm going to play for you is one that we got when I was actually photographing this monument. I'll show you the picture. And it was as I was actually walking across the street to go back to the car. My husband was already at the car, so I was by myself walking across the street. To me, it sounds quite clear, and it sounds like whatever it was very close to me. To me, it sounds like it says, I cannot find my friends, or the medal from my friends. I don't know what it's saying, but it's kind of clear, so I'll play that for you now. So that was it for the battlefield EVP. We actually only did one loop of the battlefield that day because, as I said, we were only there for a day. You need hours to actually go around the entire battlefield, and we wanted to get to the museum, see the thing that was actually called a Cyclorama, which is a huge painting of the battlefield that was done in the 1880s, which is amazing. I'll tell you guys right now. So after the battlefield, we went to the museum and the Cyclorama, and I didn't try to get EVP in the museum because the museum is actually from 2008, even though there's a lot of old relics there, so I probably could have got EVP, but it was so loud with people talking. They show films there. I just didn't think I could get any convincing evidence. There was just so many voices, so I didn't even bother trying. After the museum and the Cyclorama and the film that we saw, we went to the Gettysburg National Cemetery. And in there, I got some really good EVP. Now, the first EVP I'm going to play for you, I'll just tell you what I was doing at the time that I got it. I was actually standing by the graves of World War I veterans. And that's where I started off, and I said the same thing, you know, if there's any spirits here who want to make contact with me, feel free to follow me through the cemetery and just speak into my recorder. Now, as I was walking away from the World War I veterans, I was walking towards this giant, beautiful monument. It's the New York monument that's in the cemetery. And to me it sounds like a very, very faint whisper, so you're going to have to hear headphones and turn it up again. But it sounds just like someone says, Jesus. So go ahead and listen to that. Again, it's very faint, but to me it sounds very, I'm trying to think of the word, kind of mechanical, which a lot of EVPs are very electronic. That's the word I'm looking for. So that's a pretty, I find it to be a very good EVP, and to me it sounds just like it's saying Jesus. The next EVP I'm going to play for you is when we were actually by just a bunch of graves that were right in the middle of the cemetery, kind of. And my mother and I were talking, and she's like, are these Gettysburg? And I said, no, I'm pretty sure Gettysburg is over there. They are buried in a trench graves, and they're in a semicircle all around the middle of the cemetery. And I told her, I think Gettysburg's over there. My husband and son were way ahead of us, but this is when I caught up to my mother. And I said something along the lines, we'll go walk over there to see Gettysburg, where the Gettysburgs are buried. I got an EVP, guys, that I think is one of the best EVPs I've ever gotten. It's going to be hard for you guys to hear, but I mean, to me, it sounds just like a guy with a southern accent say, come over here. But the way he says here is just like he's from the South. Now it is faint again like the other ones, but if you listen carefully you can hear it. It's just like, come over here. To me, I kind of take that as an intelligent EVP, because I was looking for the Gettysburg graves. It kind of seems like he was saying, come over here to see them. Next one I'm going to play for you is when we are over at the Gettysburg trench graves, and my husband was actually reading off names on a stone. The way they are is some of them are just numbered little tiny stones in the ground, but some of them actually have slate slabs with names on them, and some of them just say unknown. So he was reading off some names, and he said, such and such name unknown, such and such name unknown. You're going to hear him saying names and the word unknown, but after he says a name, you're going to hear a really kind of strange voice to me. And what it sounds like it's saying is, they're lovely. Ooh. When we took a walk through the rest of the cemetery, I just walked with my husband. My mother has really bad knees, so she didn't want to go with us, and my son was a little, antsy by then. So we just took a walk around to see what else was down towards the way. And we were just talking amongst each other. We weren't talking about anything ghostly. We were actually discussing what we were going to do with the few precious hours we had left down there, discussing how stupid it was that we only went on a day trip. We were kind of aggravated with each other at the time too, so I'll admit that. On playback of the EVP, I distinctly can hear what sounds like a woman crying, and I mean, she is in like anguish crying. I'll play that for you now. And then again, when we're walking back towards my mother, we're not really saying anything to each other. It was right after I asked him where this one monument was, where this one soldier was helping another up. It was the Brother to Brother monument, I think it's called, or something along those lines. We didn't go see it because we wanted to go eat dinner at the time. And it sounds just like a woman say, "Mother, I want my mother." Mother, 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 mother. So that is my EVP from Gettysburg, and I'll tell you guys, I can't wait to go back there, not just to do more EVP sessions. I mean, that was exciting and it was a privilege to go there and do that. But I didn't see even half the battlefield and half the monuments there, and I'm telling you, it's a very beautiful place. It was a privilege to actually just be there to see where that battle was fought. I highly recommend it again. I'll say that if you guys can get there, because it is a wonderful place. The museum is very impressive. They'll show you a film there. They'll show you the Cyclorama for just, I believe it was like $10 a person, so it wasn't bad. I'll tell you though, the bookstore and the museum is very high priced, so I didn't get anything there. We didn't get any souvenirs on this trip. I guess the EVP was like souvenirs, right? So I will be having a Gettysburg picture video up for you of the monuments that I actually got to take pictures of. As I told you, I only got to one section of the battlefield, so I don't even have like nearly half the monuments that are up there. But I do plan to go back in the spring, and I'll have more pictures and hopefully more EVP for you guys in the future. So thank you so much for watching. Comment, rate, and subscribe. If you are subscribed, I appreciate your support so much. And thank you for watching again. Bye guys.